Hey,
How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the Defiant Lion Show. This is episode 4 with Cason Corbitt. We're going to be talking about Andrew Yang, the Democratic nominee for president. We're going to be talking about him through a very conservative lens, though. I'm a libertarian. Cason is a conservative. So let's talk about a Democrat from a conservative lens.
all right. What's up, everybody? I'm Cason. So I've been since I've been able to vote, I've been a registered Republican. I'm definitely conservative. I like conservative values. I believe in a small federal government with less spending. I think taxes theft. All that jazz. That also being said, I generally find I think it's a funny thing to say that I had an opportunity as a Republican to vote for Donald Trump twice and did not both times. Uh, and it's usually a frustrating thing to me. People, oh, Republicans are so dumb. I'm like, man, I didn't even vote for the guy. Like, it's such a. But anyway, so I discovered you posted this thing about Andrew Yang, right? And I was like, on April Fool's Day, and I was like, is this a joke? And you're like, yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, it's April Fool's. But I started watching. So I went and watched. He had just done a video on Ben Shapiro's show, Sunday. He does a sit down for an hour on Sunday with random people, and I was surprised, really surprised with how much they agreed on stuff. Obviously, Ben, is more conservative, and he, fought with pushed back on him on some things. But I was surprised at how much they agreed on.
Hmm.
And then later that week, I think Ben was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he brought it up again. He said, "Yeah, I don't agree with him on this and this, but I think he's a nice guy, and I think he's definitely worth. I think he's a damn sight better than anyone else running for president on the Democrat side." And that made me think things. And I watched Andrew Yang's uh, conversation on Joe Rogan, and I love Joe Rogan's format because it's a 3 hour long conversation, and you really get to kind of know a guy in 3 hours. There's no hiding, there's no making a false face. After 3 hours, you kind of pretty much got the gist of what a person's talking about. And
Yeah.
so I started looking into his policies, and I will admit, going right off the bat, I think the first thing we should talk about is the stuff that I don't like about him.
All right. Before you get into all that, I kind of want to say, like, I think a lot of people don't realize that a lot of Donald Trump supporters are actually kind of like the 1990s Democrats that kind of got, sick and tired of the Obama year situations. So,
Yeah,
like, I think when people say like, "Oh, Republicans voted Donald Trump," like, yeah, a lot of them did, but the principal conservatives like yourself, like, weren't swallowing the Kool-Aid. Um,
he's not to quote Ben Shapiro, he's not really a conservative. He's
he's
an
not.
authoritarian. Like, he wants government control of stuff. He banned bump stocks. He's not a conservative. Like, it's a very frustrating thing to try and explain that to someone. And you sit there, like, I have a socialist friend, and I go, Donald Trump's not a conservative. He's like, you would say that to distance yourself from him, but he really is. I'm like, no, man,
Yeah.
he's not. Like, come on, dude. Like, but
Right, right. Yeah, I like saying that because it actually pisses off both sides pretty well. Um, but like I remember you came up to me and you said, "Oh, what do you think about Andrew Yang?" And I said, "You know what? He's what do I say?
he said he said he's a piece of mud on a stick and a bucket of shit.
Yeah,
Which,
he's a stick of mud in a bucket of shit."
yeah,
And I think that sums it up. Like out of all the Democrats, like you know, he actually makes the most sense. He's successful entrepreneur, and he has bizarre ideas, but they're kind of almost halfway sane when you really
yeah.
start looking into them.
Like I was telling you, like, at first, some of your friends on that post were making fun of me, but it was like, at first I was kind of like, these are some of these ideas he's coming up with. I'm like, that's what I would do if I was in government. Like,
Mm,
I gave the. But first I want to talk about the the real elephant in the room with him, which is his gun safety policy.
oh man, yeah.
And this is a big. Who was I? Sam Milton. I was talking to him in group the other day when I posted my thing. This I said this is how I would change Andrew Yang's gun policy, but his pretty much starts out. He he wants to promote a stringent licensing system for all firearms, right? So I'm reading it from his website. Um, he like a car, like getting a driver's license. You know what I
Mm,
mean? So, and I will say I'm not inherently against that kind of concept as long as like a driver's license, it's like
mm,
societally really sought after. Like if there's one thing I like that Russia does is that gun safety classes are mandatorily taught in high schools. And it's like
mm,
I think that should be a thing. But so tier 1 is I think he's saying tier 1 is pretty much any age. So like as long as a parent signs off on it, you can go get your 12-year-old the tier 1 license.
mm.
Um and it says basic hunting rifles and handguns. This is the first part that makes me a little annoyed with the whole thing because it's clear that this was written by him and probably some other people who don't know a whole lot about guns. But it says tier 1 for basic hunting rifles and handguns, you have to pass a background check, pass a basics hunting firearm safety class, provide a receipt for an appropriately sized gun locker or trigger lock per registered gun. Uh so where do I begin? Um, and then the problem becomes then tier 2 is for semi-automatic rifles. Well, as you know, I'm the kind of person who first points out, I'm like, okay, you said tier 1 was for basic hunting rifles and tier 2 is for semi-automatic hunting rifles. What about the hunting rifles that are semi-automatic? But
Yeah.
that's always something we as conservatives or libertarians can throw out at liberals, and they always just shoot us down. If I was on Andrew Yang's campaign team, I would be like, all right, change tier 1 to say tier 1 is for dual action firearms.
Yeah.
I
But
would do that to stop the freaking semantics because I'm so tired of them getting that wrong all the damn time.
yeah. Well, I
Um,
guess that's why he's running as a Democrat. I mean, besides the fact that it's UBI, but I mean, I think UBI, like I wouldn't I doubt this, but like I wouldn't be surprised if the libertarians like ran something almost like a UBI as like almost an alternative to what we're doing now with the welfare system with all these programs. Because
Well, I think that's
well,
why that's why Andrew's got a lot of libertarian followers now because a
yeah,
lot of libertarians are fans of the UBI, and I'm kind of am too.
yeah, but I mean, I'm actually surprised because I mean, I think it started off as a joke. Like people were just like, "Oh, Yang Gang," and like sharing the memes. It's all fun and games, and
Mm.
you know, um, I forget what it was. I think it was Hayek. Like people were pointing out that Hayek agreed with him in certain points, and all these other libertarian thinkers, they're really trying to make a libertarian case for him, which we'll talk more about his UBI later. But I think when we're talking about the gun situation, I think the real trouble is like not the step that they're talking about. It's the gradual thing because look at what happens in Australia and New Zealand. It's like every single situation begs for more and stricter gun control. It's like, oh well, that didn't work, so let's tighten it a little bit more, and that's when you just have
I don't hate the idea. For example, like if I get this license and that means that there's no longer a 2 day.
oh, you still there? Oh, not sure if I lost him. Not sure if I lost him. Oh, hold on just a second here, guys. Let me just send him a message, see if he can come back here. Sorry about this, guys. For the one or two people that are actually watching this. All right. I'm trying to get him back. So while I'm trying to get him back, let me just try and go over what we were talking about. We're talking about Andrew Yang, Democratic. Ruta decided to update coming back ASAP. Okay, so.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay, here we go.
I guess we lost internet in my house for a second. I don't know why.
Oh,
It's
at least.
decided to update. The router decided to update, I guess. So what I was saying was, if getting this license, like the tier 1 license, means I can walk into a gun store and I don't have to do the period anymore because this license proves that I've already got all that stuff
Hmm.
done, then I'm kind of for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why I've never been totally against like the handgun license or like getting a license to own a gun
Hmm.
policy. As long as, like in Texas, as long as, okay, I have this license, then I'm also allowed to open carry because my state allows open carry. You know, like we can't ban all the other things.
Yeah.
But if this is a way to, I'm not against, bureaucracy and making sure that everyone's safe. And if this makes it easier for me to buy a gun in the long run, then I'm not totally
Hmm.
against it. The real problem comes when tier 2 for semi-automatic weapons is, and you need to be 21 years old. I don't like that. It should be
Hmm.
18. Uh, and then for automatic weapons, you have to go. He's already trying to ban high capacity magazines, which obviously I don't like.
Oh yeah.
Tier 3 requires a submission of fingerprints and DNA to the
Oh
FBI.
wow.
You must submit to a gun locker inspection to assert it can house the weapons. Who are you gonna get to to be the person that says, "All right, this is the gun locker standard"? Like, no one's gonna agree on any of that. And then undergo yearly refresher trainings on the use of these firearms. I don't hate requiring refresher training. I don't. I don't hate that at all. It's like
Yeah.
defensive driving. Like, I don't hate it. It is what it is. I probably get annoyed about it, but like I don't hate the idea.
Yeah.
Um,
We live in a society after all, right?
mhm.
Um.
But here's what I was saying to Samuel the other day. I changed it to be like, I think if we're gonna do it, that I think a semi-automatic rifle one needs to be 18, and then automatic needs to just be 21. There's no DNA requirement. I would take that away and take the high capacity away. I do like that if you already own guns, that type of gun, you're grandfathered into the required license that you would get automatically, and you will get a good gun owner tax credit when you do that.
Hmm.
I do like getting a tax credit. Um,
Don't we all?
but other than that, that's what I'd change. And why would I be okay with it as a person who hates gun things? I think that's the first thing I'd like to get into.
Yeah.
I think that it doesn't matter that I don't like the concept of gun control. I think it's coming whether I like that or not. I think it's going to come.
I mean,
I think we've lost. I think we have. I think people don't care. And so if that's the case, then I would rather be a part of making the rules than
hmm.
being the person on the losing side shouting about my principle.
See, I mean, I think I think this is where me and you differentiate because I'm just kind of in that camp where it's like, don't give an inch because then you're going to give a mile. You can't negotiate with terrorists, as the popular saying goes.
I agree. I think it's too late. I think it's too late. Is what I
Yeah.
think. I think it's just too late. I think it sucks, but if this doesn't get through, like let's say that everything else Andrew Yang wants to do gets through, but we have a Republican Congress and they say no to the gun thing, I'd be like, oh, best of both worlds. Then I'd be shocked if that happened though. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, there's like I said, there's a reason he's running for as a Democrat as opposed to something else, and maybe it's not just his UBI bill. I'm not sure how true this is. I read this somewhere. You know how things go when you can't believe everything you read, but it was a situation where he was gonna have shooting like any kind of like shooting crimes like deaths, mass shootings, whatever, go as a tax penalty against the gun manufacturers and the gun sellers.
he said that.
And I'm not sure if it's true. So I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, he definitely said that, but it's something I read about his policies when he first started coming onto the scene. So if that's true, that's a really dangerous precedent to send because it's basically like the more crime there is, the more money that gets funneled through the government.
Yeah, I don't see that anywhere here under his gun safety policy. Um, but obviously that's an awful idea. That's like
Yeah.
suing a car maker of someone who drove drunk with that car. That's
Well,
it's
I mean,
idiotic.
I guess that kind of goes away from his gun safety policies because I think that would be more of like a different category, even though it is about guns. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like it's not about licensing and gun ownership. It's more about the repercussions of criminal and who pays for what.
Everything I've seen, heard him say, regardless of who he's talking to, because I've obviously watched a lot of his videos now.
Mm,
He even though he has this gun control policies thing set up, he talks about it very little, and he always steers the topic of discussion back to mental health and poverty. And
mm,
I'm like, you know what? I don't disagree with that. I don't
right.
think it's a gun problem. I think it's a mental health and a poverty problem.
Yeah.
I think a lot of
Because I
oh,
think even as conservatives and libertarians, like we hear the call out for the help for the very bottom people, and it's like we all have different answers on how to combat that.
mm,
But I think we all want to combat that as humans, as civilization,
yeah.
whatever have you. Um, but the one thing that I really do like about Andrew Yang, because I watch a couple of his videos too, and I would actually vote for him if he was a Democratic nominee. I'm not gonna lie, I'll call it right here. If Andrew Yang is the Democratic nominee, I'll vote for him.
I'm the same
He,
way, man. I
he,
would vote for him over Donald Trump real
yeah,
quick, dude. Like it
he,
wouldn't
he,
even
he
be a
may not
thought.
he may not be ideal. I don't think UBI is ideal, but I think there's an upside, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I wanted to talk about he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was talking about how Bernie got it wrong about free education.
Oh, I loved it. I was like, "Thank you, a Democrat finally
Yeah,
saying this." Like,
yeah,
Jesus.
he made absolute sense, and he was saying a lot of things that I usually say. It's like we need to reform the education system for it's not like college is the end all be all. Get kids into the trades. Get
Well, I love how he sits there and he goes, Bernie's talking about making college free. College has gotten God knows how much more expensive over the last 40 years, and the value of the degree has not matched the expense. It's not. It's not gone up in value.
Yeah, and
College,
that's been systematically pushed up because of all this government involvement because we have things like tuitions and stuff like that. They really don't have to make it affordable or make it valuable. It's just give them the diploma and send them on their way with their
I
bill.
think, I think going forward, I think from my end, my theme of discussion for the rest of the thing is going to be like I consider myself a big fan of like Teddy Roosevelt conservatism,
Mm,
and the more I dig into him, the more that's how he comes off to me. He Teddy yeah, did want the government not interfering in people's lives, but he did want the government actually doing stuff that was beneficial. It wasn't like he wanted like the Tea Partiers where he wanted like I want the government to be so small I could drown it in the bathtub. He wasn't that guy. He was just a guy who was like the government should worry a lot less about punishing its people and actually doing stuff for their people. So like I'm not against the government doing more to protect our wildlife and rivers. I'm not against that at all.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm not necessarily against. I don't know about you, but have you heard him talk about his like climate change opinions? Uh,
I have not. I actually have not looked at that. I assume that he's kind of in the same ballpark as every other Democrat, where
well,
there has to
yeah,
be some kind of solution.
but he at least will also admit, like he sat there and said, "This is something that that Ben Shapiro agreed with him on." I was like, "Wow, I can't believe a Democrat said this." He goes, "Even if we go completely green with nuclear, because that's the only nuclear,
Mm.
because that's the only way it would ever work anyway." We would still not really put a dent in it because China and India still produce way more pollution than we do. And
Hmm.
I was like, finally, someone said it. Like Democrats think they like to say it's like all America's problem. I'm like, China doesn't give a crap about going green. They
You're
haven't.
right.
So like
Uh,
that's always been the conservative argument. It's like even if we go along with you and this is what's happening, guess what? The other countries aren't going to play by the rules we're trying to set out here. They're not going to do it.
And I
And
mean,
so,
even if you get a global situation where everyone kind of makes the regulations, which it's not going to happen, obviously.
mhm.
But let's just hypothetically say, it would realistically be like I'm not sure if you saw the Mike Lee meme spiel in Senate when the Green New Deal was in on the House.
Oh yeah.
It came out of the House, I should say. Um, and he's like talking about like the little ice things from Star Wars, like to get around Alaska. It's like, but no bullshit. That's what it would have to be. We'd have to drastically change as humans living in the 21st century.
Yeah. And I think at some point we're probably going to have to adapt to something like that. I don't
Mm,
know. But I'm in the camp that's like we as humans have proven we're extremely adaptable. So even if something bad does happen from climate change, then I think I'm an optimist about it, and I think we're going to find a solution because that's what we do. But
yeah,
that's
I mean, I think if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. I don't think
he's
there's gonna be much that we can do, and I think it's gonna discomfort us more than not than to save us. It's like what are we really saving? It's like we're trying to like cut back emissions so that maybe we could last like a little bit longer. Where just could have easily just get hit by a meteorite and just
mm.
ELE right there.
All right. What is before I want to get into a few more things before we get into the UBI, which is obviously his big thing.
Yeah, but
Everything he talks about comes back to UBI. If you hear him talk, it's always like, "Yeah, I think this about this, but that's why UBI is so great because when we put in UBI, it's going to solve that problem too."
yeah,
So,
that's
but other
the elephant in the room right there. The UBI.
Uh, let's see. He's for decriminalizing drugs, which I'm also for. He's for obviously nuclear energy. I'm totally down with that.
Yes.
He's interested in converting income tax to corporate value added tax. So there's no more income tax. I'm like, yep, totally down for that.
Mhm.
Why are we? He even said it like Ben Shapiro. He goes, well, you're talking about a value added tax. If you were saying get rid of income tax and then make it strictly value added tax, then I'd be 100% behind you. And then surprisingly, I thought Andrew Yang went, well, I think that's the only way anything going forward will ever work for anyone. I was like, the Democrat just say he wants to get rid of income tax? What?
A
No. But like,
round of applause right there, honestly.
uh, so let's see. There's lots of other different things. He's for increasing teacher salaries. I'm not against that. He's uh, uh, for pulling soldiers out of foreign countries. I'm all for that. He's not a war guy. He is for border security because if we're gonna have a universal basic income that needs to be protected, he's just like a wall stupid, which I agree. Like And go granted, if you have conservative fans who watch this, yes, I have seen the plans of the wall. It is very well done. Yes, engineers are smarter than some random guy trying to dig a tunnel under a wall. I'm
Mhm.
just saying, it's a lot of effing money when you could just put up a tower every like 2 miles that has a camera in it and can tell where people are.
Yeah,
It'd be way cheaper.
just put
Like
a sniper there.
there's better solutions to border security than a giant wall. Just anyway.
Yeah. And like I said, as inhumane as that is, it's like, you can put a sniper there. It's so much cheaper.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Sure, just a
Um,
joke, a joke. I'm serious. Like, I don't want to shoot people.
uh,
Like, I don't want to just shoot people constantly.
a little bit of both. It's like, I mean, I really have no problem with. I mean, everyone's like, oh, the difference between legal and immigration, illegal immigration is like, well, if people can come in here and make their own money and do what they can with it,
Ooh.
like whatever, like I
M-
don't care.
he's for modernizing voting and taxes. So we would just have an app, and anytime we bought anything or had income, we would just do it right then on our app, and so then you don't have to do your taxes at every year. It's already done.
Mm,
Like or voting. Like I love this. Because I voted in my local elections a couple weeks ago, and I was really annoyed because I missed early voting. I had to vote on election day, and so I had to go to my local junior high school to vote there. And I was like, man, it would be really cool if I could just go to any polling station in my entire city, give them
mm.
my ID, and then be like, okay, here's your ballot. This is what you're allowed to vote for because this is where you live. And we have a computer, and there you go. I'm like, God, that would be so much better than I have to go to this one location because it's the only place where people who live around me can vote.
Mm. Oh, hold on 1 second, because I want to just address a comment that came in. I think we got a random viewer here. How is Yang Gang conservative? I don't think he's really conservative. I'm a libertarian. Cason is a conservative, who very much likes Andrew Yang out of all the other candidates here, because there aren't really any real conservatives. You got Donald Trump and Bill Weld. I'm a libertarian. I don't have any choices in the race either. I mean, I kind of like this guy, so I don't think we're making the argument that he is conservative, but I think we're making an argument that some conservatives can feel better about him than, say, a Kamala Harris or, whoever else
or
is in the running.
or a Bernie or a Joe Biden. All three of those, by the way, I honestly think at this point would not beat Donald Trump in a general election right now. I really
Mm-mm.
don't. I really don't think they would.
I don't think anyone is.
I'll totally admit that I could be wrong, but I don't think they will. I think it will be even worse than it was with Hillary Clinton as far as disdain for the Democratic Party, if it's any of those people. I,
I
I
mean, I think the only way he's really gonna lose is if it's like a big celebrity with like power, like with like name power, that's gonna get people that don't usually vote out to vote.
maybe.
Like, I think that's because I mean, even the I'm not gonna say the far left, but like the kind of like Bernie bro socialist wing of the Democratic Party, they're all pissed about them. Basically just like, oh well, here we have Biden again. Like, oh, everyone get excited for Joe fucking Biden. Like, like
Joe, I touch
I feel
ladies
your
really weird.
pain.
Biden, like he does. Like John Stewart joked about it a long time ago. He was like, "You see this? Look at that. You can't just wipe that away. He's like rubbing women's shoulders and all that stuff. It's creepy looking.
Yeah.
Like
I feel your pain, Democrats. It's kind of like when we keep getting Gary Johnson, and especially when they named Bill Weld as VP. It's like, oh my God, how could
uh,
things get any worse?
listen, I don't know. All right, so let's get into it. Universal basic income. So
Yep,
it's Andrew Yang's big thing
$1,000.
to every American, uh, unless you want to take disability and welfare. If your disability and welfare is more than that, he says, stick with that, but then you don't get the freedom dividend.
Mm,
Um, and he believes that it would solve a lot of problems in the country because if you give he said it's not enough to substitute a job, but it is enough to supplement, especially with the wave of tech that's coming in, which is going to make a lot of jobs obsolete going forward. And so it'll at least stem the bleeding a little bit for starters. And also, if we start it now, someone say if I have a he thinks that if he gives you or I an extra $1,000 a month, we will then take that money and use it however we want.
Mm,
And he's like, some of that money's going to go to buying stuff, and it's going to go right back to Jeff Bezos at
mm,
Amazon because they're going to buy a new toaster. Some people are going to pay off their debt, which is a really good thing. I don't know, like we talk a lot about the trillions of dollars of debt we have.
mm,
It's like, what is that? 6 trillion of it is personal debt in this country. 6 trillion, like credit card debt and shit. That's a lot.
mm.
Like people will probably start paying that off, which that's not a bad idea. You put it in a bank account, and he's like, some people might, you know, they have a dream to start a business, but they don't have enough money and they can't get a loan. Well, if you have an extra $1,000 a month, maybe that's kind of a reality. And not only that, but if everyone else has an extra $1,000 a month, maybe they actually want to buy what you're selling, and then maybe you have enough money to actually hire some employees. I don't hate the idea at all.
No.
I think there's a lot of positive to be said for it. Um,
Mm,
I like it better than just throwing money at I don't feel like it's throwing money at a problem. It's giving people money that's already theirs.
mm.
That's how I feel like it is.
It's kind of
It's
like
taxing.
like a realistic solution to a problem that people are constantly harping about, and I think the reason why I like it is because it's like we're gonna have to give into something at some point, anyways. And I think I like this idea because one, it levels the playing field. You get people like me who also get $1,000 a month, and be able to like maybe go on vacation or something. Do something extra with the money, put it back into
Eh,
the economy in some way, shape, or form. But where I really like this is, I think it gives justification to sort of end some of these programs one by one, where it's like, oh, you didn't take care of what you need to with your freedom dividend, like that's
that's
on
on you.
you.
Yeah, I love that.
Like we don't need the voucher for this, we don't need the voucher for that, and the free program here that's just gonna make like Andrew Yang said about the education, it's like you're trying to subsidize something that only one third of the population is really going to be able to use.
Mhm.
And out of that one third, only about 10% of those people are going to be able to apply it practically.
Yeah, or even going to be even less than that's going to be in a position that they studied college for. They're not even going to
Mm,
be in a job that they went to college for. It's
yeah.
you he brought up Germany. That's some Bernie and all the other Democrats. They always like, we need to look to other countries to implement their systems. And I'm like, well, why don't we look at other countries that have systems that are actually working? Like Germany, one of the reasons they have such low unemployment is because, like he was saying on I think on it was either Ben or Joe, and he was saying, well, in our country, the amount of people who go to a trade school instead of college, it's like 10% of high school graduates. In Germany, it's like 59%.
Mm.
And you can't AI yet, and it's probably going to be a long time. You can't AI away a plumber. You know,
Yeah.
robot hands can't fix your pipes. Robot hands can't do your air conditioner. That's still there, and I think that's what we need to do. We need to be focusing on that stuff. We need to be focusing on getting kids into tech, into IT. Focus on getting kids into technically digit intensive jobs, whether
Mm.
it's IT or whether it's like plumbing or some sort of trade skill, something like that, because that's going to be a legitimate path forward. That's going to be something where I make $40,000 a year, and that on top of an extra $1,000 a month, that is life changing for people.
Mm.
That's how you create a lot of poverty, get rid of a lot of poverty problems. You don't sell them this idea that, oh, you go to college and become a doctor. Man, not everybody's going to be able to become a doctor. Like,
Yeah, yeah. It takes a lot of drive, a lot of intelligence. Like it's almost like becoming a basketball player. It's like only one in a million are really going to make it to be a great surgeon. Um,
and and that being said, he wants to cut out a lot of bureaucracy in medicine. I'm not
mm,
against that.
absolutely.
He was like, yeah, we charge some. He said most of the problem. with healthcare is that we charge so much because doctors have a big, huge college debt that they have to pay off.
Mm,
And the hospitals take that on and they need to be able to pay it off. And he goes, well, the problem is since we've been subsidizing college for that reasons for so long, a lot of that debt is kind of artificially manufactured by the college anyway.
mm.
Like,
I'm gonna read out this comment. Pink Flamingo says, "Yes, I agree. We need students to gain more relevant experiences starting in high school." And I think that goes back to not to try and jump back to the education thing, but I think it's important part of like this whole conversation with the UBI and everything, where he's talking about paying teachers more and spending less on the aesthetics and supplies, because like those things aren't going to change the teaching experience. Good teachers and students that want to learn change the school experience,
yeah,
not big fancy gymnasiums and
100%,
auditoriums.
100%. And it it's really rough, especially in Texas, because we're this big, sports state. We care a whole lot about it, and they get a
Mm,
lot of money. And I've had a problem with it for a long time. One of my big we're so focused on that instead of making sure kids get educated.
mm.
You know, for example, I met Jamarcus Russell once when I was at LSU. Um, nice guy, uh, dumb as rocks. And I remember going through high school with guys like that and thinking how many kids are in college right now on an athletic scholarship who probably shouldn't be in college.
Mm.
Not because they couldn't be taught anything, but because no one tried with them, no one held their feet to the fire and held them accountable, and they just gave them a free pass and they never had learned anything,
Yeah, and it's like unfortunately that's just kind of part of the whole routine. You go through high school, you go through college and play sports, and then you go into the NFL and NBA, whatever have you.
I think that's going to be the next big like scandal in sports
Yeah.
scandal. I really
Well, I mean, you already see the basketball players, like they're all one and dones now. So it's like I think people are seeing the
It's such a joke. He's for and that's another thing I like about Andrew Yang. He's for paying college athletes. I've been
Mhm.
harping about that for so long. It is a joke. Pay the kids. Pay them.
Not to
College
change it too,
football players
not
get concussions and they're dead in their head for the rest of their lives. Pay the kids. Like,
not to change subject too much, and I can't believe I'm talking about LeVar Ball on my program when we're talking about Andrew Yang, but I really like what he did with him trying to start up like kind of like that high school to college level um, training program into the NBA. It's like you don't want to go to college, you don't want to have to be stuck there. It's like, just come to my training camp for like a couple months and we have a tournament. And because really what do you learn in college? You're trying to get experience against other good players that are your age, readying you for the
oh, and
NBA or the NFL.
and then the college gives them a full scholarship to go there, right? They don't
Hmm.
even go to class for the second semester. They go for one
Yeah.
semester if they show up, and then the second semester is March Madness. They're not in school during that whole time. They
And,
got games to play. And
and that seat is reserved for them. So that people are talking about how what was it, the girl from Full House bought their kids way into college,
mhm.
and talking about like, oh, like, well, some rich person's kid is having a seat at that college where someone more deserving could be. It's like, well, what about the college athlete that's not showing up? It's like his seat is still reserved. It's like all he wants to do is go and play football. If he wants he can go and play football for a year, make enough money to pay for 10 scholarships.
Yeah,
If he
they already are making enough money to pay for 10 of your scholarships.
yeah, he play 1 year, just say he breaks his leg the next year, like, or it doesn't work out for him. It's like he goes back to school and, tries to figure out what he wants to do, whether it's a trade school or whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, that comes back to UBI, and it starts at 18, the second you're an adult, and he also wants to do a ban uh, corporate corporate and or lobbying group donations to presidential candidates.
Mm.
Like, so even unions can't donate. And his idea is the government gives everyone $100 a year, and you can donate to any candidate, local, federal, whatever you want to,
Mm.
however much you want to, and so the candidate has to actually compete for the person's dollar. I don't hate
Mm.
that idea per se.
Right.
I don't see another way to get lobbying groups out of politics and stop people making laws based on, all right, well, we paid to get you in here, now give us our law. Like,
Yeah, and that's pretty much what it comes down to. It's, people are just that's the whole idea of democracy and why I'm kind of, actually anti-democracy, where it's like, you're basically just having the majority, pick what they want out of, the situation and basically bully the minority around.
oh man, he's the only candidate I've heard in a while talking about making it illegal to do the algorithmic trading fraud. Like, you know how they do the things. It's still, to my knowledge, it's still not illegal to intercept stock trades by having a faster bandwidth, and then going and purchasing the shares that that company was going to buy, and then selling them to that company for like a cent more per share, which doesn't sound like a whole lot at first, but when you do that over thousands and thousands of trades, you end up making millions of dollars and create artificial problems. To
Mm.
this day, like, people found this out, and there's like three congressmen and or senators that talk about it, that Republican or Democrat. They're like, hey, inflation's being caused by people gaming the internet right now, right? Internet
Mm.
and stock exchange. And they're like, nobody cares. But at least he's the president talking about it. Now, UBI, I so for all those reasons, I like the concept. Um, and like I said, I love that he's talking about just redoing taxes, period, to where there is not an income tax. You
Mm.
know, there is a value added tax. We tax the business entity itself, all right,
Mm.
based on how much robots they use, right? There's things like that, how much they produce, especially since when they're doing that, like what he was, truck driving companies are going to be saving each, like, it's like $200 billion a year by
Mm.
using an automated truck instead of a truck driver. So if that's happening, I see no reason to tax that income at them still making, they'd still be making
Mm.
savings, but you tax some of that and then use that to start paying for stuff. I think we also solve a lot of our debt problems and spending problems by pulling out of these foreign countries where we're not really doing a whole lot. Like,
Mm.
I'm weird on the fence about conservative as a conservative, where I'm very anti us still being in the Middle East right now, and I understand that those guys did some like, people we got out over there did some terrible stuff, and I understand that the rest of the world does look to us for leadership in that area. But
Mm.
it's like talking to Curran, like I'm to the point, especially. I wish the U.S. especially after talking to Curran a lot, I wish the U.S. was more friends with Pakistan. And then I also wish we just said, you know what? You guys told us you want us on this war council. Anytime something bad happens, you say, United States, come save us. And then we come, and then everybody gets pissed off at us. You know what? I
Mm.
feel like it's time for us to take our ball and go home. And the next time
Yeah.
someone asks us for help, we say, no dice. That's what I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, but I'm with you with that. Complete non-interventionalist. Like, I think there are certain situations where, you're talking about human atrocities like, World War II, the Holocaust. I think, you're right as, humanity to kind of step in and,
Well, maybe it's
stop the
someone else's
atrocity.
turn to try and do it. We do it a lot. It's someone else's
Yeah,
turn. Let them do it and let them get yelled at for stepping on holy ground or whatever.
I,
Let
I, I can I can agree with that. Yeah.
hey Germany, why don't you go do it for what? Hey like, what is it, Sweden? Why don't you go do it for once? Hey, Switzerland, why don't you go take care of it for once? All right, we're tired of taking care of it, and you
Hmm.
guys shitting on us for taking care of it. It's your turn. See how you like it.
Yeah,
That
I can agree with that. It's it's just like anything. You're with your friends, and you're always the one to pick up the bar tab, and it's like, all right, like
That's
I can
that's
I
always the conservative argument against socialism. People are like, I don't understand why. You know why socialism works in like Sweden? It's because they don't have a military in Sweden. Why?
mhm.
Because if someone invaded Sweden, we'd come and save Sweden. All
Yep.
right. So now I really do think it's come down to we say nope, we're not doing anything. And if Russia goes over to Sweden and says, guess what? Sweden's part of the new USSR. Sweden's like, save us, United States. Guess you should have spent some money on on a military.
Mm.
Maybe you should have done that.
Yeah, because
And I
Trump.
know that sounds real petty, and I get it, but I feel like the rest of the world has been very petty with us for a long time, and we've taken it. And I'm kind of at the point where like, well, I'm kind of done with the shit then.
Mm.
And guess what? We're tired of spending way too much money defending you guys when you guys apparently have plenty of money. Will you defend yourselves? And we're going to take that extra savings on money and give everybody in our country $1,000 a month so they can not be in poverty anymore. That's what I think.
Right.
There you go. How about
No,
that?
yeah, I can completely get down with that. Absolutely. Because I mean, one of the things I agree with Trump is like we really get ripped off when it comes to like all these international agreements and like how much we have to pay into things. Like I obviously don't agree with him on the tariff side. I think you know tariffs are always gonna be a net negative to
I'm
the
tired of
economy.
I'm tired of us giving Saudi Arabia money for their oil.
Hmm.
I've always said this is my plan. We immediately stop buying oil from any other country. We do start drilling and fracking in our own country, but only for the next 5 years. And over that 5 years, while we have plenty of our own oil and fracking. All right, we do it for ourselves, but only for 5 years. And during that 5 years, while we're self-sustaining on our own oil and fracking, we start building nuclear power plants and wind farms and solar panels in the middle of the Nevada desert that are
Mm.
giant. You know, and then we go, all right, we are 100% self-sustaining. We don't need any of other countries' oil. We don't need any of your crap. Figure your own stuff out. Let's see how well you fly without our money. How
Mm.
about that? Let's see how well you fly.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly I think the plan for right now. I'm not sure what the update situation. I keep meaning to check back. The Venezuela situation. I think Trump is just trying to prop up this Guaido or like someone up there. That way we can just kind of like do some nice little trade deals with oil for them because I mean they're rich in oil. We just need Maduro out of the way and you know.
I don't. But that's the thing. I don't want to trade with them on oil either. We have our own oil. You know what I mean?
Mm,
I'm not against the concept of going green if we do it efficiently. All right? I'm
mm,
not against the concept of being completely self-sustaining in energy if we do it right. Okay, but we're not doing it right. All right?
mm,
It's going to take a ton of time and infrastructure to do. It's going to be a long project if we want to do this. All right? And if we want to do it, it's going to take some years of us not paying for terrorist oil, all right, and drilling and using our own to sustain the amount of time it will take to build this infrastructure.
mm.
There's where liberals don't like it. All right.
Yep.
Conservatives don't like it because we're going green. Well, liberals don't like it because they're like, oh, but then we're going to have to actually use our own oil and stuff for a while. Yeah. Well, guess what? That's the reality.
Yep.
You're going to have some energy for a little bit. Okay. And we have plenty of our own. And I'm tired of giving it to Saudi Arabia, who then gives it to IHateAmerica.com. So, so I think all those things are good. I think
Mm,
I look at him and I see that he says I'm not right, I'm not left, I'm progressive. And that's I know that especially in our circles, we make fun of the word progressive now.
yeah.
Um, but
Well,
that
well,
doesn't
well,
that
know what it is because
doesn't
it basically becomes a word for like the most ridiculous people that kind of regurgitate all these ridiculous views that the Democrats put out there.
but I don't I look at all this stuff and except for the guns and I personally abortion,
Mm,
I don't hate any of this stuff. I don't. Like, and obviously I don't think people should be one issue voters. And the reality is
mm.
those two things are the only stances that I agree with Donald Trump on a lot of cases. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and also abortion. That's not even a presidential decision. That would have to be a SCOTUS decision, and in
Yeah.
which case you can kind of rest easy voting in Yang for that situation because
And then he goes, and then he says, even though he does spout the Democrat thing, which is, I think men just shouldn't be a part of the discussion at all. He does go, but if we gave everybody $1,000 extra a month, they probably could afford to take care of their kids. Just throwing
mm.
that out there, and I was like, oh yeah, like
Yeah, I think the first thing that always comes up where you're talking about any kind of redistribution, not just UBI, but especially UBI, the effect that the market is gonna immediately have because you see it with minimum wage going up. Every time minimum wage goes up, the price raises. People get an extra $1,000 a month. The price is gonna rise across the board
yeah.
for pretty much everything.
And part of that right now, like, because he's right, but he's like, I don't blame like Amazon for doing this, but they eat up, $20 billion of revenue every year, an
Mm,
extra $20 billion of revenue, and stores are closing down left and right, and they are getting away with paying almost nothing in federal income taxes. You
mm,
know what I mean? Like paying almost no taxes. And so it's kind of like, well, he's right. They should, but like it's not their fault they don't. Obviously, if you're a business, you're trying to not pay your taxes, right? Pay
mm.
as little as possible anyway. But I mean, if they're eating up $20 billion a year, and businesses are closing, and people are losing jobs, and they're not paying taxes, well, we're gonna be fucked. So something has to change there. So I like value added tax. I like
Yeah.
saying, all right, Amazon as an entity, not Jeff Bezos, not the other members of the board or whatever. Amazon is an entity because it does this and provides a service to people and has a value, and you don't employ as many people as you ought to prevent you guys from causing bidding wars for people wanting your warehouse in their town and causing all that problem. You put your warehouse wherever you want. You're still going to pay us a value added tax off the top. And then you guys take your cut. And we're not going to charge you once you take your cut after that.
Mm.
But then we're going to use that money on top of us saving money on, not being at war, saving money on less, like taking care of people less because they're not in debt as much. And all these things that snowball with being financially secure.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think the main thing I like about Andrew Yang too is he's realistic. He sees what's going on. You mentioned AI earlier, and you're talking about factories. Like obviously, factory jobs are kind of on the out. You have Amazon who needs shippers, but soon enough AI is going to be taking care of things. But you also mentioned that there are some things that AI are just not going to be able to take care of. And I think what we're looking at in about 20, 30 years is just a world that there's not going to be much needed to do.
yeah, and I think he's right. I think the best solution is to get ahead of that curve, and I think this is a good way to do it.
Hmm.
Um, it only works when we've reached this point as a society where we have the ability to actually eliminate a lot of the work we have to do.
Hmm.
This is not an idea that I think ever should have been suggested in like the 80s or the 90s.
I mean, it's already happening, and it's like, all right, obviously slavery isn't going on in America right now. It's still going on in some other countries, but even in America, about 100 years ago, we had use child labor and stuff like that. Kids were coming into the
You,
factory.
you remember
And,
my post I made a few, or maybe it was last week on RDD? Like I always laugh at people talking about like whether or not they think it's better, like getting better, or I can't believe people still do that in 2019. I'm sitting there going, man, 1,000 years ago, people were like tying people up to stakes and setting them on fire. Okay, like,
hmm,
and people would gather around and cheer. Like 100
Yeah,
years later, people would like bend someone over, like place weights on people and crush them to death. Well, not
yeah.
even
I mean
here.
that would still be going on today if it was just a conservative. Everyone would be cheering like, "Oh yeah, you voted for Donald Trump, like burn him."
Yeah,
Um,
like
yeah. So
like everyone, like you know, 160 years ago, we had slaves in this country. There was
yeah,
slavery in this country. 100 years ago, we didn't have courts out in the West, so we would just take people to the nearest tree and hang them there until they choked to death. We're not that great.
yeah. I mean,
And
ethics aside, I was more talking about just the amount of work that we needed, where it's like, a lot of people won't want to admit this, and it's like we still need some slave labor in other areas to kind of like function um as a society, because that's just the way it works. We're standing on those foundations, and that's just how it works. We used to have to do a lot more labor. It keeps getting less and less, and people are complaining that their jobs are getting taken away. It's like, no, this is a very good thing. Labor is becoming less and less of a factor. That means we're not going to have to be killing ourselves all the time. Like,
which is what Andrew Yang's talking about. Like he
mm,
brought up, he's like, we have to look we have to look at what kind of labor we value differently. You know,
mm-hmm,
because as an example, he says like I run, when I was running a tech company, my labor was valued very high.
mm-hmm,
My wife, who I think works equally hard as I do, but not harder because we have kids and one of them's autistic and she takes care of them all the time. It's a hard job, but our society puts her labor at very low value. It doesn't value it at all.
mm,
Like she doesn't get paid for that. And it's kind
yeah.
of like, well, but
I mean, you
look,
can sit there
companies treat
spitting on you can sit there spitting on a rock for 20 hours. It's not going to be valuable from 1 hour to 20 hours.
yeah. So I agree with that. He's like, we probably should start valuing things like teachers a little bit more. We probably should start valuing things like healthcare providers a lot more.
Mm.
And that being said, he talks a lot about like if you're in a place where there's no doctor and doctors don't want to go there, then I say we let a nurse practitioner be able to treat people legally.
Hold on. I'm just gonna. We got a couple more comments. I guess
Oh,
we got a lot of random people wanting to hear about Andrew Yang. I guess he's more popular than we thought. One's in Spanish or something, so I can't read it. Is this a recording?
Google
Yes or
Translate,
no?
bro.
Uh, no, this is a live feed, but we're probably going to be wrapping it up in a couple minutes because we're pretty much at the hour mark. So if you're just joining us, you'll be able to watch it in full once it ends in a couple minutes. Me and Kason have been talking about Andrew Yang, Democratic candidate for president. I'm a libertarian; he's a conservative, so it's kind of an interesting topic where a libertarian and a conservative get together and talk about a Democrat in a favorable light.
Hmm. So I think he- there's this scene. I'm a big fan of the West Wing show. There's this scene where they're doing like a flashback, and one of the characters goes to meet the guy who's the president in the show, Martin Sheen's character, and he goes, "Well, let me know if you think he's the real deal, and I'll quit my job and come help you work with them." And so the guy goes down there and hears him talk, and he gets on a plane, flies back to his friend, goes up to the boardroom he's at, and bangs on the door until he looks at him, and he goes, "What? What is it?" And he just starts nodding. He's like, "What?" He's like, "He's the real deal." And they leave. And I'm like, that's kind of how I feel about Andrew Yang. I'm like, he's the real deal. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, he's not pulling crazy yet, and yeah, he's not doing stuff, but he's qualified for the debates. And I think that if we get enough word out about him and people watch, I think he's going to turn some heads. I really do. I think he's the real deal. I really do.
yeah, and it's like I think it's a kind of losing battle because one, I don't think I think the Democratic Party is kind of crooked, where it's like they kind of handpick their establishment picks, and I don't think he fits into that criteria. Same thing with Tulsi Gabbard.
I think the good thing about Bernie running last time is they really exposed that, and I don't think people are going to put up for it a second time. I really
Yeah,
don't. I don't think people are going to put up with it a second time.
yeah. I mean, like I said, even the Bernie Bros, like a lot of my Democrat lean, or left leaning friends, I should say, like aren't even voting Democrat. They're like, screw the Democrat Party because they keep giving us guys like Joe Biden, and they're basically like Obama was the one ace in the hole that they gave us, and it's like you really sit there and look back at it. It's like, what was really so special about Obama? Like he was a different color. Like it was something fresh and new. People could be like, "Oh, hey, this is something different." But
And I,
besides
I
that,
don't.
it was the same
I,
thing.
and that's another thing I always respected Bernie on. He's like, I'm not afraid to say I think what some things that Barack Obama did weren't good. I think they
Mm,
were crap. Like I hate that Barack Obama bailed out all the banks. I hate that. I hate it so much. I hate that he bailed out the banks. I hate that he bailed out GM. It makes me so frustrated. And then they went and took their bonuses. A GM didn't do it apparently, and GM apparently, as far as I know, is still the only car company that has actually paid back all of their debt to the government.
mm.
But like the banks, they still haven't paid that back. You know, you never should have given them money. Never should have done that. But saying a bad thing about Barack Obama is not okay, and I don't
Yeah.
like.
Well, I think it's just. I mean, it kind of works in both ways because it depends mostly on in the region. Like I'm up here in Boston, so it's Democrat city, so it's like you can trash a Republican all day, but as soon as you say something bad about a Democrat, it's like, oh, ye gods, like.
Who's that guy who's on Joe Rogan all the time? Who's like he's a real lefty, but he's like, oh, I'll talk shit about Democrats too. Those freaking warmongers, paying the war machine. They're in bed with them too, and just killing people. Like,
I'm not sure. I don't watch Joe Rogan too much. I did happen to watch the a small little snippet of Andrew Yang on Joe Rogan before we did this episode, just to kind of refamiliarize myself with Andrew Yang.
yeah. So, but I feel like that's about the extent of it for me. I like him. I don't by any means think he's perfect. Even as a conservative, I have problems with him. But looking at the board, looking at the field, best possible option, even from a conservative standpoint. And he's got a lot of liberal things in there. But you know what?
Hmm,
Truly the lesser of two evils, if not an actual genuinely good, is what I think about him. And
hmm.
so that's my 2 cents. I think that if you're a libertarian person or a conservative person and you're like me and you're really frustrated with the fact that the conservative choice is Donald Trump, I think this guy is someone we need to start sharing around to our more liberal friends who are part of the Democratic Party and saying, "Hey, we really like this guy," and I think they really would like. I think they really would too. Like if he
Maybe we
was
should
a
pitch him away
candidate,
from Democrats.
huh?
Maybe we should pitch him away from the Democrats.
I don't think then we'd have to oust Trump somehow, and I don't see that
Well,
happening either. I think the only
I
way we're
mean, he's only got 4 more years either way, so or 5 more years, whatever you want to call it.
maybe and maybe 4 years down the road, if he gets 4 years, 4 years down the road, maybe the Republican Party starts to go into disarray and the Libertarian Party starts making a comeback finally. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean that would be interesting because you really think about what do they have now? Because right now the only person that's announced that they're running against Donald Trump was Bill Weld, who was a vice presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party last year, and basically said to vote for Hillary over Trump if it came down to if you were like in a battleground state, or you didn't have because a lot of states don't have the libertarian selection on the ballot, like they don't have ballot access everywhere.
So it's real tough, and I,
Hmm.
I think to be quite honest, it's so bad because I don't want to say he's the only conservative candidate we have because I don't want Democrats, registered Democrats to go, well, I'm not voting for a conservative. I'm like, he's not.
Mm-mm.
I really think he is what he says. He's not right. He's not left. Even though he is a progressive, like you look at his policies, that's obviously what he is. He's obviously a progressive. He obviously is
Hmm.
socially liberal. He,
It's almost like we're doing them a
and
disservice by supporting them.
really fiscally liberal. Like he really is. But Man, if I look at any other Democratic candidates' policies,
Mm,
like I'm looking at this, my gag reflex is going to kick in, and I don't get that with this guy.
yeah.
And there's some things that Donald Trump says on a daily basis that make my gag reflex kick in. So I think that whether you are more left leaning or more right leaning, that this guy is the guy.
Yeah, and I think that's what
I
a
think
lot of people don't.
we need someone with good ideas, and we need someone that is going to unify everybody. Like we need a guy that both sides are going to be like, I like this guy, and
Mm,
I think he's the guy. I do. I think he's the guy. I think he's not gonna. I think he's gonna cause unity and not derision. I think his ideas are really good. I think he has a legitimate shot at beating Donald Trump based on his ideas and
mm,
how he talks. I think people are going to look at him, and it's not going to be like Hillary Clinton, where everybody just thinks she's a liar no matter what she says. I think they're going to look at him and see like an honest guy who actually does have some really good business acumen and understands things. I really do. I think he's a
yeah,
great. I look at him and I see this guy could be a great unifier. I
yeah,
really.
because
And
he does break things down simply, and like so he's not too heady for the normal person. But I mean, I think getting him to the big stage is um the big problem. I mean, and
he's well.
you're saying like how you had that kind of like gag reflex with Trump, and it's like I think that's what a lot of the real conservatives have a problem with Trump, and it's like that's actually more what I like about Trump. If you're talking about like just his very what's it called? Just his very audacious nature. Like I kind of enjoy watching that, but a lot of the old school people and conservatives are just like I can't deal with that class. It's like I understand. I understand.
It's not even this classless. It just gives ammo to the other side, and I'm tired of giving ammo to the other side. But that being said, I think a lot of Democrats do the
Well, here's the thing: you can give them all the ammo you want because they're just gonna ban guns anyways.
same. Oh Lord, that's good. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think this guy's the real deal. That's what I think about him. As a
Yeah.
conservative, talking about a liberal guy, I think he's the real deal. I think all this stuff. It's not so like it's definitely liberal. It's definitely left, but
Yeah.
I I think it's doable. I think it's realistic, and I think that it does the most to benefit every single person in the country
Mm.
without punishing other people.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
the
it's
that's the
obviously
big
it's
that's the
yeah.
big thing about Democrats. In order to do that, you've always got to punish someone else. You got to punish the one
Mhm.
person to help everybody else. This helps everybody without punishing anybody, I think, and
Yeah.
that's what I like
I
about it.
mean, I mean, obviously, someone's got to pay, and like that's the biggest libertarian argument to it. It's like, well, you're extracting something from someone, but as we are talking about, it's a lot of these, not to sound like a leftist, but the big corporations, billionaires and trillionaires that Bernie's always talking about, and it's like coming from a libertarian perspective, it's like he's not my ideal candidate. Like if I was running for president, I would not be talking about UBI. I'd be talking about more stripping down government and just kind of seeing how nature takes it. And people would probably think I'm absolutely insane and not vote for me.
Yeah,
um,
that is the
but
problem with it. Is like people. I don't think you can get people behind that, and that's the other thing about him. I'm like,
Yeah, but
I
it's
think
like
you
at
get
the same
people.
time, it's like he does say things that I agree with on like a fundamental issue as far as the society goes, and it's like, all right, like he's the adult in the room,
Yeah,
if there ever was one in politics.
yeah, that's what I like about him too. He's the adult in the room, and he doesn't let. I think he answers those tricky leftist questions with a lot of grace
Hmm.
in a way that kind of appeases them, but also doesn't make me feel sick to my stomach. You know what I mean? The way Bernie does.
Yeah,
Where they ask him those trick questions like, well, what are you going to do to support this one thing? And he goes, thank you for asking that question. He does all this stuff. And he goes, universal basic income. That's how I'm going to fix it.
yeah,
Because
and
it
it's like
helps every single person. That's how I'm going to fix it. Like,
yeah, but it's like UBI is kind of like on a weird spectrum because it's like it's not necessarily socialist, and I mean, it's not necessarily capitalist either. It's somewhere kind of in the middle, and it's funny because one of the videos I decided to watch because I was like, okay, it's gonna be hilarious. Was his interview on Fox News, and it was like the lady was just trying to catch him into like, oh, you love capitalism, don't you? Oh yes, you made a lot of money because of capitalism, and he's just kind of looking at her like,
Well, yeah, like but he's not a socialist. Like even
right,
like he's a capitalist. Like he even said this is one of what is his, he's trying to just change the parameters of like change what we value in capitalism, but he still wants it to be a capitalist society. Like I don't
hold on 1 second. You just keep talking for a second.
yeah. I don't know. He's a capitalist. He calls it crowd human centered capitalism. Let's pull this up. I'm gonna read it off. This will probably be one of the last things we talk about. Go. I was I was just saying one of his policies is he wants to do a thing called human centered capitalism is what he calls it. But that's what he's talking about, where we change what we value, the kind of labor we value, and we keep the system, but we societally change what kind of labor we value, and that's how we justify UBI and finding other kinds of work for people. And I'm like, I like that. It's good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it would be a lot better to have a lot more Andrew Yangs in the world than a lot of these corporate puppets that you keep seeing get the chance to be on the big stage and go for the presidency. Because I mean, as I think he could even make like a Bernie type movement. Like kind of how like Bernie just like hit that plateau and just like really took off on the internet. I think even if Andrew Yang had that kind of movement, being as young as he is, um,
That's not. He's
he's
young,
he's not
dude.
gonna.
I
I
love
don't think
this
he's gonna win it.
young dude, man.
Yep.
He doesn't
How old is he?
look like an old
Actually,
man. I think he's like just old enough to even be able to run. I think he's like 40 something or something. Like he's not that
yeah,
old.
35 to run. I think it is.
He's 44 years old.
Yeah. So yeah, he's a
He's
young guy.
young. Like he's not youngest president ever young, but he's you know he's he's not an old guy. He could like uh, I like that too. Like they always talk about
Point is, he's not
if
80
I
years
was
old
talking
like
to
Bernie.
Bill Maher right now and he was like making fun of me for liking Andrew Yang, I'd be like, how often do you sit there, Bill Maher, and talk about how your party needs some new blood and you're tired of all the old fogies? Well, guess what? Here the hell he is. Like, knock, knock, knock.
Yeah, pretty much. Because like you look at all these well, not a lot of the Democratic candidates are kind of newer, but it's like a lot of candidates that are still big names are people that have been around since the 70s, 80s, 90s. Like here's a 44-year-old guy, and
Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders. Like,
oh my god,
Elizabeth Warren. We don't want to go down.
I think Bernie ran for the first Congress. I think I lost you again. Well, I'm not sure. I think hold on, Bernie ran for the first Congress. I think I lost you again. All right. Well, I'm not sure. I think. So I think I lost some. I was about to wrap it up anyway. So this has been episode 4 of the Defiant Lion Show. I've been Michael Leoncello. I will be here next week or something. I don't know. I'll catch you.